Hey guys, just a quick note before we begin that the show may contain spoilers and adult language, but that's just because we know how to have a good time. Stick around, you'll be glad you did.
You are here for me to enlighten you.
You ever act like this again, you're barred for life.
It's just violent bass.
It's kind of embarrassing.
If you know your lines, then you can forget them.
Oh, I get it. It's very clever.
Hello peoples and welcome to Esoterica Cinema, the podcast where we take films from the cinematic multiverse and discuss the hell out of them. I am Jason Peters, and with me as always is the man who Michael Shannon once described as a little too intense for his liking, Mr. Ryan Siebold III Esquire!
Whoa, that's a lot of titles. Man, no pressure from my man Michael Shannon. Sorry, I don't mean. I'll cool it down for him. I didn't mean to come off as being intense.
I think it was just like, I think it mostly stemmed from the time where like he took your parking spot. You remember that time? Like you were really upset about it. And you just let him have it. And I mean, at the time I assumed roid rage or something. Cause I mean, dude, you just went off.
Sometimes you have to. I mean, he took my spot. I don't know what to say. I got pretty upset.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So some Hollywood big shot just going to take the little man's parking spot? No.
Who does he think he is? Who does he think he is?
Listen, Michael, we know you're listening to our show. We know that you're one of the four, and we remember. We remember, bro.
He actually seems like a pretty cool dude, so my apologies for losing my cool.
I love Michael Shannon.
In this imaginary story.
Everything
that never
he's
happened.
in is amazing.
I'll try to tone it down.
We have got an excellent show for you today. Will it be good? Will it be bad? Who's to say? It's gonna be something, though. Ryan, why don't you kick things off with the description of this episode's film?
This movie is seeking a friend for the end of the world, which it just seemed fitting for the end of 2020. Everyone, we freaking made it. If you're listening to this, we made it. And Lord, I hope you're listening to this because otherwise we didn't make it. And that sucks. So there's only two options. Seeking a friend for the end of the world from 2012. Way back in the day when we thought it would take an asteroid to bring out these events. 2020 said, hold my beer and watch this. A nice little existential parable from the Lorena Scafaria, who brought us Hustlers a year or two ago. She also wrote Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. Rotten Tomatoes describes this movie as the announcement that an enormous asteroid will obliterate Earth in less than a month brings an end to the marriage of mild-mannered insurance salesman Dodge, played by Steve Carell, whose wife leaves him on the spot. After his bold young neighbor, Penny, belatedly delivers a letter from Dodge's former sweetheart, Dodge decides that he must find the love of his life before it is too late. Dodge and Penny embark on a road trip that eventually brightens their outlook, if not the entire world's. Aww. Jason, I really enjoyed this movie. It is star-studded. It's got a bunch of comedians in it that were all on the come-up back then, minus Steve Carell, who had already kind of locked his place in history with The Office and such. But did you like this movie, or this was kind of you could take it or leave it? I personally love this movie. What did you think?
Well, I'll tell you what, Ryan, before we begin, why don't we play a trailer real quick for the audience? We'll come back, I'll let you know, and we'll get into the film.
All right.
The final mission to save mankind has failed. The 70-mile-wide asteroid known as Matilda is set to collide with Earth in exactly 3 weeks' time, and we'll be bringing you our countdown to the end of days, along with all your classic rock favorites.
So feel free to wear your casual Friday clothing pretty much any day of the week. And if anyone wants to be CFO. Anyone?
So, what are you doing with the rest of your life?
Catching up on some me time, find God, maybe move around some chairs.
Maybe I'll run into you on orgy or something.
That sounds nice. Listen, Elsa, you don't have to come next week or ever if you don't want to. It's okay.
You fighting me?
There's just no need. Forget it.
See you next week, Mr. Dutch.
I regret my entire life.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye now.
We should set up Dodge with Karen, don't you think?
It's everything I never wore.
The sky is falling.
I've been with a different girl every day. They don't care about diseases. Are you gonna call them back? Or are you related, you know?
No, I don't.
You don't?
Hello? You okay?
No, I'm never gonna see my family again.
Would you like to come in?
I won't steal anything if you don't kill me.
Agreed.
Who's the girl? She the one that got away?
Well, they all got away, but she was the first, yeah.
Let's go find her.
We need to go, right now. If you drive me to where I need to go, I can get you to your family.
Luckily, I'm getting my midlife crisis in just under the wire.
Hi, welcome to Frenzies, where everyone's your friend.
I can't believe you guys are still open. And do you know what? It's his birthday today. Why didn't you tell me that? Happy birthday!
Oh, God. Yeah, we should go.
We're on the road to nowhere.
You can't be serious.
How fast are you going?
15 miles an hour over the speed limit.
Given the couldn't you find it in your heart to give my friend here a fighting chance of being with the one he loves before we all reach our untimely conclusion?
No.
All right, man. So this was a movie that I was really looking forward to. I thought the premise was awesome, was really hoping that it was going to be everything that I wanted it to be, and it just wasn't, man. It just wasn't for me. Here's the thing. I didn't dislike this movie by any means, but I didn't love it either. For me, it was just kind of like a totally, decent experience. I watched it with my wife. She loved it, so you're definitely not alone in that. And we're going to go ahead and get into the specifics of why right here. So when we start this film, we're going to start at the beginning as we always do. We've got a shot of Dodge, who is played by Steve Carell, and his wife, or who is ostensibly his wife anyway, is sitting in the car. They're listening to an announcement over a radio broadcast that the Earth is officially coming to an end as the final shuttle mission to save the planet has failed. By the way, before we continue, Ryan, do you know the name of the actress who played his wife in that shot and jumps out?
Yeah, that's his real life wife, Nancy Carell. She used to be on.
Sir, it is.
She used to be on the Daily Show with him. That's how I know her. And yeah.
Yeah, very talented actress. She was great on that show. Loved it when she was on there with Jon Stewart and the rest. So, but yeah. So here's the thing. Before we continue, Ryan, there are a lot of things about this movie that call them on the nose or silly, whatever you want to call them. But like right off the bat, the main character's name is Dodge, dude. Are you serious? Like, come on, man. Like, you're just gonna throw that right out there. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the original name for him was Shy, and they were like, that's just a little far, and she was like, all right, I'll go with Dodge. Like, come on, dude, don't do that.
Because why? So why is that too on the nose?
Because he's dodgy and he dodges people and he's dodging life and just I don't know, right, dude. It's like. All right. It just seems ridiculous. That being said, it would have been awesome if like the camera pulled back on that initial shot and they were sitting in a Dodge sedan. That would have just been brilliant.
Man. So as long as we're going down the list, Keira Knightley's character's name is Penny. And her boyfriend that they ditched, played by Adam Brody, his name is Owen. So it's Owen Penny's. I don't know, maybe there's and they're financially distressed. How deep are we going to go into this, Jason? Owen Penny.
I'm just saying, dude, like it was just, it made itself known to me. So, but regardless, so as the shot continues, as you said in the description, his wife jumps out of the car, runs off, never to be seen again. And we soon learn that there are 3 weeks left before the world is going to end. And despite this, Dodge decides that he's going to go into work. And that's actually a pretty funny scene. I did appreciate. There's like 3 other people in the office, including, as I'm sure you noticed, one Mr. Rob Hubel, who really doesn't say much of anything, but sits there with a sullen look on his face, which he does very well, as we know. And it's a stale corporate office. There's this sort of funny exchange where they're talking about all the positions that are opening up, and the guy ended up offering the position of CFO if anybody wants it. And then the girl's just like there crying her eyes out. I actually do have a clip of that I'm going to play for people real quick.
I'm sorry, sir, that's not covered under your current policy. I'm afraid the Armageddon package is extra, yes. Well, that protects you and your family against any sort of apocalyptic disaster, asteroids, obviously, plague, famine, locusts. Drawbacks. The premiums are high. I'm sorry. Can you just hold on for one moment? Thank you.
So feel free to wear your casual Friday clothing pretty much any day of the week. And since Ted in Human Resources is no longer with us, I thought I'd let you all know of a few positions in upper management that have been made available. So if anyone wants to be Chief Financial Officer, CFO. Anyone?
Life has no meaning.
Anyone?
I really think I'm going down.
So a funny little exchange there, Ryan. And from there, Dodge returns home and he's got his housekeeper, Elsa. She's cleaning and he basically tries to fire her.
Hilarious.
But she's not having it.
She has no idea. Till the very end of the film, she has no idea. She just thinks that she's being fired every time he tells her she doesn't have to come back anymore. She can go home and be home with her family. And yeah, I thought that was a pretty solid running joke, personally.
Yeah. The way I saw it, I didn't think that she didn't know what was going on per se. I think it was just kind of like her inability to accept what was going on, you know, just kind of the regularity and normality of just showing up to work every day, which sort of parallels what he did by going into work. So yeah. I think that was kind of her thing.
Yeah, but when he tried to tell her to go home, she took it as being fired. And so it just didn't process with her that she would have to go anywhere else. This is her duty. This is what she's supposed to do on Thursdays.
Yeah, so from there he goes back to work the next day. And I think that's pretty much just to set up the gag where Rob Huebel's body smashes into the windshield of his car.
Yeah.
And
that one caught me off guard. So, I shit my pants a little bit on that scene. I forgot about that. I had my, it's just a lot of casual dialogue and kind of easygoing jazzy music. And then all of a sudden that loud crash on the windshield. And I peed a little bit.
It certainly was jarring. Yeah. Now let's talk about Steve Carell's performance here real quick. So this was made when Steve Carell was making being a sad sack into sort of an art form, if not a very bankable role that he could just do over and over and over again. We saw films like Dan in Real Life come out at this time alongside this one. I think, what was it, like Crazy Stupid Love or something like that?
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Something sound like that. And then, and then even before that, it's really kind of an extension of even the role that he played in The 40-Year-Old Virgin.
I was going to say,
that was much more of a comedic role.
Yeah.
So, I mean, did you like the performance?
He was surrounded by comedy, but he played kind of the same role. And this was a very similar situation where he was surrounded by a lot of strong comedians that were, giving it their all. And what I believed were funny jokes and solid writing. And he just kind of carried us through in a morose fashion. I get what you're saying. If you're looking at this movie in context, in the sense that of what everything else that he was doing in his performance versus everything he was doing at that time, I could tend to agree. You could probably say that about Keira Knightley's performance in a similar fashion in this movie. But out of context, if we're going to talk about just this movie, I really enjoyed this movie. I stand by it. This movie, it kind of felt a little Garden State-y to me. This was like Garden State 2.0. Mm-hmm. It was a spiritual sequel. Zach Braff kind of played that same character that was surrounded by comedic roles and like odd situations that he got thrown into here and there. But he was kind of our vehicle to take us through without altering the course much. And he would respond to things in the way that maybe the audience would, even though he was being thrown into some pretty outlandish scenarios. And I feel the same about this movie.
Don't disagree with you, man. I think that there's a lot of the same sort of spirit and energy there. And I mean, I like Garden State. Don't get me wrong. I think that I appreciated it way more when I was younger. I don't know that I would find the shins to be a life-changing experience anymore. Though, to be honest, I never did. I was never a fan of that sound, let's be honest. But, it's one of those movies where it's designed for youth, like it's for a younger crowd, a crowd that's sort of
Garden
still
State,
got their whole lives ahead of them, right? And like, it's like got that graduate thing where, this like you're not really sure what you're going to be doing and these expectations and, feel like failure. You haven't even started, blah, blah, blah. So it's like,
but this movie is the other side of that.
Through this,
this movie's the other side of that. This is Garden State 2.0, wherein this is like Zach Braff's character 20 years later. After he is working in insurance and his wife just left him and the world is coming to an end with an asteroid causing a cataclysmic apocalyptic event on Earth. And so this is kind of the other side of that. And I will also add, this movie, much like Garden State at the time, this movie has even though it didn't hold up, I will agree, this movie has a really solid soundtrack. I enjoyed a lot of this stuff on this soundtrack personally. Mostly older songs, but if you're out there, look it up. I personally thought every song was pretty fitting for the scene it was in and did it justice.
You know what? That's actually really interesting because generally speaking, I tend to pay really close attention to the music in films, or I will at least notice them subconsciously or otherwise. And I don't remember any of the music from this film.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah.
Did we watch the same movie, dude?
Yeah, no, it's weird because you said that and I was like, that's really... Because, like, for example, we both felt that way about Booksmart. A couple months back or whenever it was. Like, that had a rock and roll soundtrack. We both picked up on that. We both picked up on the Dan the Automator tracks and, some of the different people that were featured on there. And yeah, so generally speaking, I'm totally with you. Like, I will notice those soundtrack songs, and it's... Even now, I'm trying to think of anything. I cannot. Let me run it
down. Let me run it down for you and our 4 listeners. You got. I think we're up to 6 listeners now. You got "Wouldn't It Be Nice" by the Beach Boys. You got "Devil Inside" by INXS. You got "In the Time of My Ruin" by Frank Black. You got "Set Adrift on Memory Bliss" by PM Dawn. You got "The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore" by the Walker Brothers. "The Air That I Breathe" by the Hollies. "Dance Hall Days" by Wang Chung. You got some Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. "This Guy's in Love with You." The Walker Brothers' "Stay With Me, Baby." It's all oldies, if you will, but I thought it was, pretty fitting and carried the scenes pretty solidly. I don't know. Just one man's opinion.
So when we come back to the film, Ryan, we get what is one of your favorite storytelling devices, I know, which is the unmotivated time jump. And that actually happens a couple times in this film. And it's just where they decide that they've said everything they need to say within this. And so they're just going to do the 2 weeks later sort of thing. So in that spirit,
are you talking about I'm going to reverse engineer that and say that it's one of the other passages of time motivators that we've seen throughout our journey on this podcast, which is the ticking clock. And they come on the screen on several occasions and say how many days left we have until the end of the world. And so it kind of lets us know over time, how long how much time has passed and how much time we have left. So it kind of keeps the pressure on our necks a little bit to, it keeps the throttle going.
Yeah, well, see, that's one of the issues that I had with the film, though, is I didn't think they handled it effectively. Like, it's not handled consistently. It's, 3 weeks to go, and then there's like 1 or 2 days, and then all of a sudden we're jumping forward to 2 weeks, and then it's been anywhere from like 1 to 7 days, and now we're jumping forward to the very last day, and it did not feel, it felt like one of those things where as a screenwriter, it's like, oh, I need to put in this ticking clock, here we go, but it was like not really part of the original vision, and it was just not really implemented organically, I found. I never really was like, oh, they've got to hurry because pressure's mounting. I never got that at any point in time during this film.
Oh, I did. I'm going to, man, this is like a reverse Lives of Others where I actually really got a lot of these things and you're not having it. maybe if they were German and emotionless, you would have been all about this.
If it was cold and calculating and cynical, I'd be like, oh, Ryan, it was brilliant. It was brilliant.
Yeah. So take us through the plot a little bit. Let's get into this, because I think the next scene is going to start taking us into Rob Corddry's character, and I love Rob Corddry's character.
Indeed it is. Yeah, it's where we jump forward and he's at the party, and basically everybody's just, said, fuck it. Like, there's nothing really to take seriously anymore. We can all just sort of bang and do the drugs we never did and this and that. And so we see dodging this girl that's coming on to him very strongly. You see what they did there? Clever.
I so hate that you picked up on that, because I didn't, and now I'm mad. So he's trying to avoid her, we'll say, this time. And, and then Patton Oswalt shows up, which, love me some Patton Oswalt. That's the same party that Rob Corddry's at, and his wife. And and that's one thing that this film does incorporate to a large degree, whether or not you think it's successful, but it has a lot of those celebrity cameos, like a lot of the sort of Will Ferrell comedies tend to have. And I don't know, did you feel like any of them were particularly memorable, Ryan? Well, let me start by saying that this was 2012. So remember that, had Ratatouille even come out yet by then? Maybe it was right on the heels of this or something. I'm trying to think of when these people all became stars. Were they stars at this point? Rob Corddry.
Well, they had to be
I don't know
enough
if
so
Hot
that
Tub
they would
Time
be in
Machine
the
was
film.
out yet. They have careers, but Rob Corddry might have just been coming off of The Daily Show, which is where Steve Carell knew him from, etc. So, you got Melanie Linsky in this movie. You've got Connie Britton. There's a lot of Adam Brody. There's a lot of people in this movie that, it's easy to forget that 8 years ago, some of this stuff may not, some of their careers may not have been as relevant as they are today. I don't know. The party was hilarious to me. Before that, when Steve Carell shows up to Rob Corddry's house, and Rob Corddry's saying, it's going to be a killer party tonight, his son storms off all emo and depressed. He says, whatever, Dad, and slams the door. And I just thought that was so hilarious that adolescence and puberty makes no exception for the apocalypse. Darkness be darkness regardless.
I also thought it was a very funny moment where the couple shows up and they're like, hey guys, who wants to do heroin? And they drop the bag out and everyone's like, yeah, all right.
Yep.
That was very funny. And of course, with no rules at the end of the world, who knows what the hell we would all do? I'm sure we'd all just be banging and doing drugs and not giving a fuck.
That was Patton Oswalt's stance. He wanted to get an orgy started. And his little Two Chefs in the Kitchen song that he was singing was pretty funny. I thought that.
So immediately after that, Dodge returns to his apartment to find Keira Knightley's Penny. And she is crying on a balcony just outside of his apartment. She reveals, he goes to the window, opens it up, says hello, and she quickly reveals that she just missed the last opportunity to be with her family, who is in England, I believe. And all of the flights have been officially shut down because there's no more reason for anything to continue. World's coming to an end, and she missed that window to get back to mom and dad. So she's torn up, and they have a little exchange, and she conveniently ends up giving him 3 years worth of undelivered mail or something like that.
It was a couple months, but yeah.
It seemed like a long time. I don't know, 3 months, 3 years, whatever. It was a bunch of mail, and that's the device that they used to reveal to Dodge's character that his wife of however long was having an affair. Also with the comment she makes about, her boyfriend being there or something like that. So
No. The mail introduces the letter from his previous love before he was married, his ex-girlfriend, who had sent him a letter professing her love for him. And he had just been dumped by his wife who he found out, to your point, Keira Knightley confessed that she had seen a man sneaking in and out of the apartment who she assumed was his roommate. It turns out, his wife was having an affair. So that, gave him the closure he needed and opened up a new door to go seek out this long lost, unfulfilled love and see if there was any way to rekindle it for the few days that he might have left.
Okay, wait, hold on. So that's not, I'm pretty sure it comes later because he doesn't accept it because he ends up like getting so torn up about it that he goes on that codeine bender. And he like chugs the cough syrup.
Right. The codeine bender came
running
before
around
this.
the park.
That was all before
to,
this. He found the dog before this, Lucky. Or no, Sorry. The dog, Sorry.
And that's another thing that I want to bring up. They find the dog. He wakes up after trying to drink Windex and kill himself after he finds out about this affair. And there's a note. I don't even know who the hell the note's from. And it just says sorry on there. And so what does he call the dog? Sorry. Like, what the hell is with these names, dude? They're so ham-fisted.
Oh, Jesus. I'm revoking your publishing license because you're becoming pretentious and crusty and grumpy.
Oh God!
What are with these names?
I have been crusty and pretentious for a long time,
money,
bro.
Dollar bills. He spends money. His name's Bill. What the fuck, dude? It was a funny little witty pun. He had the dog was left with him like, sorry, I'm leaving this with you. I ain't taking care of it for the rest of the apocalypse. I'm going to go have fun. And so, yeah, he just looked at the note and looked at the dog and he's like, fuck it. Your name's Sorry. Like, that's what your name is now. I thought it was a fun little play on words. And the codeine bender happened previous because the cough syrup was left on the table because she takes a nip of it and says, mind if I have some? And then he unscrews the lid and, she takes a hit. So also, it should be noted that when he takes the codeine out of the medicine cabinet, you could see very clearly the expiration date. This movie takes place in March 2021. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right.
If you're all listening to this, everyone, all 6 of you, just get your affairs in order, get your shit lined out. If you have any neighbors that may have collected some mail, maybe go knock on their door, see if there's anything for you.
Also make sure you get a big ass bottle of codeine cough syrup. You never know when you're going to need it.
Yep. And if your name's Dodge or something stupid, just end it, I guess. Jump out of the window. Because Jason ain't having it. Definitely don't email us or definitely don't friend us on Twitter if your name is something stupid.
You know what, Ryan? I'm gonna write a movie about a shy protagonist, and I'm gonna call him Nervous, and I'm just gonna expect you guys to think it's cute.
Yeah, I just honestly I didn't get hung up on the names because I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was a fun movie, but they lost you at hello, so I guess there was no turning it around once he got introduced. What was his name? Oh, fuck this movie.
By the way, I just want to remind you and the listeners that I didn't dislike this movie. For the purposes of this discussion, I really am taking the opposite side because you loved it. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. Like it was fine. It was okay. It was enjoyable enough. I didn't dislike it. Like a lot of people seem to love it, and I can't say that I loved it. So I know that I'm only pointing out the stuff that is wrong with it, but that's because, you're taking the pros. So in the interest of having a nice spirited debate, and hopefully it's entertaining for people that are listening, I'm kind of taking the other side here.
I appreciate your asterisk, and I must be wearing orthopedic shoes because I stand corrected. Keira Knightley. Let's talk about her.
You just came up with that one right now? Man, that's gold.
So Keira Knightley gets introduced here in this scene. How do you feel about Keira Knightley? Because every time I see her in a movie, I ask myself, Ryan, how do you feel about Keira Knightley?
And you can never really be certain.
I mean, I keep asking myself. So she's in some good movies. I've really liked a lot of her films that she's in. One could argue that she's like, how could I phrase? She's like a generic brand Natalie Portman, But the kind of generic brand that actually is better than the original, and it's like your little secret, kind of like an off brand that's better. Like she's like the Fabuloso Natalie Portman, I think. Like, I don't know if you ever used Fabuloso. That shit is amazing.
Oh yeah, no, it's great.
But
man.
people go right to the Windex
Pennies
or
on
the
the dollar.
SOS or the soft scrub. They go to that name brand shit. But there's that Fabuloso, like half price, just chilling, and that's the real stuff that you want. And I think that's Keira Knightley. I really appreciate her.
That's
love
really
that
funny
movie.
though. Hold on, go
ahead.
I gotta jump in here for just a minute here, okay? Because firstly, I have to say that one of the bigger issues I had with this movie was Keira Knightley's performance.
Okay,
I found so I thought. First of all, I thought she was trying to be Natalie Portman from Garden State, just right off the bat.
All
maybe a
quirky
slightly
and-
more exaggerated version. Yeah. So there was that aspect of it. But I thought that she did a lot of mugging, like with her face. Like it was also like, it was very broad and cartoonish, like the expressions that she would give. And here's the thing is that when you're up against Steve Carell, who's doing this level of performance, where it's just he's at a 1.5 for the entire movie on a scale of 10, you only need to be at a 4 or a 5 to be bringing triple his energy.
Yeah.
So when you ramp it up to a 10, it's like, and I mean, I get it, they're supposed to be the odd couple, but that contrast can be just very jarring, and that's what I found here. And again, when I watched her, it's like she was going so broad with it that it just felt exaggerated and I guess even a little campy maybe.
That's fair. I mean, I got nothing.
this
I got
brings
nothing
up
for
a-
that. You're absolutely, I mean, I can't argue with that. You're absolutely right. Steve Carell was at a 1.5. He played it very monotone and let the situations kind of be the comedy in this. He wasn't funny at all, really.
No.
He was kind of just, like I said, the vehicle for us, the audience, to be kind of cynical and, walk through the apocalypse. And, it was almost like a first-person shooter, if you will, from a video game where we got to kind of live through Steve Carell, and but he didn't really emotionally affect anything that was going on around him until towards the end when he had a bit of an emotional turnaround. And on that level, maybe I could agree with you about this film not being as good as maybe I'm thinking it is, if you start breaking it down technically on that level. But it still was an enjoyable movie. I really enjoyed it.
From there, one of the scenes that I did like is, speaking of enjoyable, is when they go to that Frenzies, which is supposed to be like the TGI Fridays type place.
So real quick though, so we got to get him on the road. So, she, her boyfriend, Adam Brody, is a total piece of hot garbage. There's riots going on in the streets, as the end of the world is drawing nigh. And Steve Carell decides he's going to go save his newfound friend, Penny, Keira Knightley. So he goes to her apartment, bangs on the door. Adam Brody's there, her boyfriend. He gets them both, wakes her up, and gets them both and drags them on the road. He ends up trying to use her as a human shield, and they leave him behind and hit the road together, thus setting us out, embarking on the rest of the film. And this is kind of where Act 2 begins, I would say, where all our characters are in play and we're on the road, and now it's a buddy road movie, more or less, with Steve Carell and Keira Knightley.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that I did think was interesting about that is that we're kind of close to the halfway point of the movie right around here.
Yeah.
It's really got a very long first act, which, there are movies that have that. The Matrix has a very long first act, famously. But it was just kind of interesting to note that it did take a little while for it to get started. But I also think that the strengths of this movie were in that first half. To me, what I really liked was the world building, the elements that they brought into play with regards to how people were responding and the way things were being grounded and what did that look like. I really did like the whole setup. There was a lot of good jokes. But for me, like, what kept this movie from resonating with me stronger than I would have liked is that it does that thing where about halfway through, it just switches from being a comedy to taking care of those romantic story elements. This is sort of a by the numbers, very template driven approach to romantic comedy. And when you set up the fact that it's like the end of the world and blah, 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 and especially that first half hour, it kind of sets me up that it's going to go someplace different. So then as soon as we get him on the road, we really just start checking off all of the romantic comedy boxes. And I guess that's kind of what it didn't feel. See, you're saying that like the ticking clock worked for you, for example. I didn't get that. I didn't get that they were racing against time. I didn't get, this could have just been a road trip movie set during not the end of the world for the entire second half until you get to the very last scene. And so that's one of the things that kept it from being better for me.
I mean, none of the scenes could have existed without the end of the world happening. So,
I mean, I get what you're saying, but once it's in motion, like I said, I think it's just like, okay, they're here and they're there and they're doing this and they're doing that. And like,
fair.
Everyone's got plenty of time and, you know, there's no real sense of urgency. And I don't know. That's just me.
I'm going to add that I am in the minority here. If you go to Rotten Tomatoes or any kind of critic site or rating site, this movie is not very well reviewed. I think it's certified rotten. You're looking at, mid to high 50% anywhere you go. So,
well, here's the funny thing about that, Ryan, because I kind of, we don't really try to do too much research before the show or anything, but I did end up stumbling upon a review that I ended up reading just because I wanted to sort of compare their response to mine. And yeah, the funny thing about this movie is it really does seem like one of those films where the critics were not particularly generous to it, but audiences seem to really like it. I think it's got like a 4.5 stars on, an audience review from Amazon.
Yeah.
And if you look at a lot of the comments about the film and some of the different forums, people are really kind to it. They do really. So I think it's just one of those ones. And part of that too, Ryan, I did notice this. I think it's a film that doesn't hold up to scrutiny as well. So
right.
I think that a more general audience that's just kind of there to enjoy the story and the aesthetics and the performances, and you're not really breaking everything down, you're just kind of there and going with it. I think it works for those people. I think that me doing this program and looking at the film this closely and breaking all this stuff down actually kind of lessened my opinion of it, because this is where I started going like, hey, this doesn't really, or this is more like this. Like, it's where I really started noticing a lot of what I find to be the issues with the film.
Whereas if you had just watched this movie on an idle Wednesday for entertainment value alone, you may have just gone along for the ride and, had a couple beers and enjoyed it. Got it.
I don't think it's a movie I needed to sit there with a notepad with to really enjoy.
Right. Well, and
that's the best
to
way
your
to
point,
enjoy that
I was
film.
actually really nervous sitting down and watching this because I had seen this before when it first came out. I think I may have even seen this in theaters, to be honest. And I remember enjoying it, but I didn't know if there was enough meat on the bones to really dissect on a show like this. Truth be told, this was my suggestion for everyone out there that didn't like the movie. I'm sorry. If you did, great. I thought it would be a nice, easy way to wrap up our year. Man, look, it's been a rough one, and
you're not wrong.
There's been there's been some times throughout where I felt like, man, this is an end of the world scenario, and I can relate in a lot of ways to a Steve Carell situation, and just going out on an adventure and saying fuck it all and seeing where life takes me with a buddy. So if you're out there and things are as bad when you listen to this as they are when we are recording it, and you want to go on a buddy road trip, hit me up at Esoterica Cinema on Twitter and let me know where we're going, because I am in.
Yeah, man. And at the end of the day, I'm always happy to have seen a film just so I can have an opinion on it, even if I don't particularly like it. I think of all the films that we've watched on the program, very few of them were an outright waste of time. Maybe A Cure for Wellness, I probably didn't need to have seen, but even something that we hated like Fritz the Cat, or strongly disliked like Sweet Sweetbacks, there was still value there.
They're terrible pile of shit. Lives of Others.
The IMDb top 50 critical raving award-winning Lives of Others. All right, man, let's get back to this film. Like I said, I was setting up. They do, once they're on the road, they find themselves at that Frenzies. And
they go see Bill Peterson, the great William Peterson.
Oh, my God.
The guy in the truck who's going to get assassinated.
Ryan.
Yeah, this is how they
Ryan.
get.
Tell us where they go.
This is, you're leaving out some big relevant parts here, man. They go see William Peterson.
We're going long, dude. We're 40 minutes and we have half of the movie done. Go on.
Well, it's a long first act, Jason, but once we get on the road, it's going to be a great short second and third act. William Peterson has ordered an assassination, we find out, and he thinks that Steve Carell and Keira Knightley are the assassins. And then it turns out they're not. And he gets very quickly shot suddenly through the windshield of his car mid-sentence. They have to go bury him and take his car, but then they bury him with the keys, which is a classic bit. Then they get the keys to his truck, hit the road. Then we end up at Frenzies. Jason, go.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore. I just want to sit in the back seat and sulk. So I guess they go see TJ Miller and Jillian Jacobs and like stuff happens or whatever.
Oh, man.
So no, they do end up there. Like I said, we get some fun cameos by TJ Miller, Jillian Jacobs from various TV shows that we know and love, like Silicon Valley and Community, respectively. And they're all rolling on ecstasy, so they're feeling super huggy, super friendly. And while they're there, they're talking. And Ryan, unless I have this wrong as well, Dodge says that he knows someone that can fly her to England if she's willing to help drive him to Olivia's house. And she agrees, which thus sort of sets up the central hook of the film, which is that, and again, this is being established halfway through, and, you know, we're setting up that it's going to be a movie halfway through? I don't know. So, but they're setting up that it's going to be a road trip movie, and they end up leaving from there.
Yeah, I mean, they've been on the road. It was a road trip movie when they embarked to go see his ex.
Well, yeah, and so I guess it's then further reinforced with the fact that, like, he says that, like, oh, I can get you to someone to England, so that they just, I guess, so that's probably the device to, like, keep them together, I suppose, then?
No, she didn't even know. She didn't know that that was the deal. Remember, he puts her in the plane while she's sleeping. And she convinces, when she wakes up, she finds,
that comes so much later. See, this is illustrating the problems with the film. We can't even, like, get on the same page with regard to this film.
I'm convinced you did not watch this movie. I don't know.
No, dude, I'm telling you, that happens at like that happens after he has the interaction with his dad.
Right.
And we've still got a little bit before we get to that point.
Yeah, but you're saying that it becomes a road movie when he says, I can get you to England. But he never told her he can get her to England, right? That's the whole thing. That comes much later.
That's like the thing, like at the restaurant where they bake that exchange and she's like, so I guess, yeah, she does say she can get him Olivia, but like, he's like, oh yeah, by the way, I know somebody who like flies a plane. Like, I can get you over to your parents and you can help me get to Olivia and like both of us will be happy. That's the entire reason that she's like going with him.
Got it.
A better film would have more clearly established that. Just saying.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, in your defense, a better film would have captivated you enough to pay attention to the movie better to get some of these details. So if you were nodding out, I stand corrected again. I will agree with you.
Well, from there, they end up getting back on the road and, like she's smoking a joint or whatever. They're driving down and then they end up getting pulled over by a police captain who, even though it's the end of the world, is still going to throw them in jail for some minor violations. I have a clip of that one as well, Ryan, that I'm going to play for people, so let's go ahead and listen.
Slow down.
Oh, come on. Don't you think that he must have better things to
Benny,
do?
pull the car over,
Jesus Christ, what's he going to do? Shoot us?
There's a very real possibility he could shoot us.
All
yes,
right.
Let's pull it over.
All right. God, but I should warn you, my dad's ex-military and he says that I have a really serious problem with authority.
Put that away, please. Give that.
No, it's all I've got left and I'm trying to ration it.
What do I do with it?
Just put it in your mouth. That was still there. Officer, what seems to be the problem?
Well, for starters, you're traveling about 15 miles an hour over the speed limit.
Really? Oh, I thought I was making better time than that.
And, you got a tail light out.
No.
Yeah. Also, your plates expired about a month ago.
Go on.
That's it. That's everything. That's 3 things.
Well, why don't you write us out any number of expensive time-sensitive tickets and we will be on our way.
I need some identification.
Oh, of course. No, my name is Penny and this is Dodge.
Okay. License and registration.
Well, you see, that's where we've got a problem because I didn't get a chance to retrieve my identification before fleeing my home during a deadly riot. However, we were fortunate enough to hitch a ride with a very nice trucker who, turns out, had hired a hitman to assist him in a suicide, thus bestowing us with this beautiful mode of transportation. So the answer is no license or registration here. However, now, given the current situation with couldn't you find it in your heart to set aside the law just this once and let us on our way so that I can give my friend here the fighting chance of being with the one he loves before we all reach our untimely conclusion?
No.
So, funny little exchange there. They're not going to stay there for long because the police captain's going to come in and he's kind of one of those like, God damn it, Doyle, what are you doing again? I told you not to let these people up. And so he lets them go. And from there,
played by
Penny's
lovely Jim O'Hare from Parks and Recreation. Larry, Jerry.
Yes, of course, Jerry. And from there, once they get out, Penny reveals that she has an ex-boyfriend in the area or somewhere along their route. And so they're going to go visit him. And he's basically this sort of like smooth-talking survivalist guy that's kind of still into her. He lives in like a shelter with some other dudes. And they need to get another car, right? Because obviously the other one was impounded. And so after some little flirting, Penny's able to convince the guy to let them take the car. Kind of get the sense that both of them know it's not coming back, but he does so anyway. And from there, they go to Dodge's old house, I believe. And that's where they get to sort of listen to the records. We didn't even mention that. The one thing that she grabs from the house when they have to bail is like her records. And again, man, it just feels like one of those things like, oh, look how quirky this girl is. She could take anything with her from this raging fire. And she takes her records and they're going to carry them throughout the whole freaking road trip.
Yep.
And like, then of course, they're going to have that scene where they listen to it and she talks about how much warmer and richer vinyl is than any other thing. Like, you just know it's coming. Now, Ryan, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, and I'm going to bring this up because I think that it's very appropriate. Now, have you ever heard of the term manic pixie dream girl?
No.
Okay, so in this article I happened to read, it was referencing a previous article from a film critic. The film critic's name is Nathan Rabin. I'm not exactly sure who he writes for, but he had watched Elizabethtown featuring Kristen Dunst and coined the term manic pixie dream girl. And this is basically every girl in all of those sort of indie comedy sort of things where they're these fantastical, free-spirited girls, possibly with colored hair, and the quote that he uses is he says they, quote, exist solely in the fevered imaginations of sensitive writer-directors to teach broodingly soulful young men to embrace life and its infinite mysteries and adventures. The criticism of these characters is that they almost never live for themselves. And that's why it's like they're such just constructs of some sort of ideal woman that's somehow attainable despite being perfect. And whether it's, Kate Winslet's character in Eternal Sunshine, whether it's, Penny Lane from Almost Famous, whether it's Natalie Portman from Garden State, whether it's Keira Knightley here, we see this character all the time. And I just don't think that Keira Knightley's version is the best version of that character. It's kind of a trope we've seen time and time again, and that record scene really just hammered that one home for me.
Fair. I'll give you that one. Point Jason. Man, I love that you had that one in your hip pocket for the debates. That was that's a little nugget.
Bam!
Like, yeah, you're like, wait, all this time. How long have we been talking? 40 minutes. This guy's sitting on this article piece that he's going to break out from 1997 that some dude said something about some women. All right. No, I'll give you that. You're not wrong.
All right. After they listen to the records, he finds the letter, and there's been a letter from Olivia, and it's got her return address on it. And so they basically are like, oh, we can go see her now. We know where she is. And they do so. But when he gets there, he gets out, he goes to the door, and I guess he's just like intimidated, and immediately just decides to like leave a letter that he had written her and get back in and drive off. He's acting really weird. Keira Knightley's character's like, what's going on? And then they almost hit this long procession of people that are just going through the middle of the road like a family of ducks or something. And they are moving forward to the beach, and they decide, they being Dodge and Penny, they decide to get out of the car and join them for this sort of like impromptu hippie hang sesh on the beach.
Is that what it was? I was trying to figure it out. I think it might have been, was it a baptism? Was it weddings? They were in a line in a procession, like going up and seeing someone at the coastline. And I was trying to figure that out, what that was, because it was never really explained. And they both look at each other like, let's go hang out with these folks. And it was like families and this and that. And I'm like, is this like a baptism? Kind of like the scene from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Like, let's go down by the river and pray type of thing. Or were they getting married? Or reaffirming their vows, or getting right with God in some way, maybe? I couldn't figure it out. But because it just kind of dissolved. And then next thing you know, they were all having family picnic time.
Yeah, exactly.
I was hoping you understood what that was. I guess not. That was very poorly explained.
The way that I interpreted it is that it's just a cult, basically. You know,
a cult?
It's kind of like this cult leader. Yeah, no, and he's like, follow me, and then, okay, let's go down to the Pacific Ocean and cleanse our souls, but it's like not any sort of like formal sort of procedure or ceremony or anything like that.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I took it as like a get right with God in some way, shape, or form, whatever that may be. Interesting
that the film didn't really clarify that.
Yeah. Hey, this is an enjoyable movie. It's been a rough year. I get it. But I still have some joy in my soul. Well,
at least that makes one of us.
Yeah. I was along for the ride on this one. I took notes, that I'm being hurried along to talk about here. So I will say right after this church procession, whatever the hell cult scene it was, that's where we meet the dad, right? Played by the great Martin Sheen. Is that when this happens? According to your
immediately after that, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to say that this whole, and then I'll let you discuss, but I'll precede it by saying that this whole chapter of the film kind of seems shoehorned in, where all of a sudden he has to like make amends with his father and all the problems that were in his childhood and all this weird stuff that just kind of seemed like stuffed in the last 15 minutes of the film, I think, or maybe 20 tops, where all of a sudden there's all this baggage Steve Carell apparently has that he's got to unload on Pops, who turns out to be a solid dude, and ends up helping or trying his best to help him. Anyway, they have dinner together and break bread after he lets him in and apologizes profusely to Steve Carell's character. Steve Carell was, kind of hesitant to accept his apology. I liked one thing about this scene, and that was, aside from Martin Sheen, who I tend to like in movies.
He's great and everything.
He toasts to the beginning of the world. And I thought that was cool, that the end gets to be the beginning, because it'll start something new eventually and slingshot us into a whole new, not us, but the next, whatever, into the next phase of existence. And that's pretty neat. I was okay with that.
Yeah, it was fine. And then we didn't even mention this, but one of the characteristics of Penny is that she has what she refers to as, I believe, hypersomnia, which
Yes.
is that she sleeps really, really hard. And once
Boy,
again,
is that
Ryan,
a plot
it feels-
device.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, so many of these characteristics just feel like convenient plot devices.
No,
where
I
it's
thought
like,
that too.
because after they have and part of it too is it's supposed to be like a big reveal that the guy that has the plane to be able to take her to her family is in fact Dodge's father. And so that sets up that moment.
Let's talk about that for a second. Can you? This is an honest to God question, and I am ignorant as shit in this department. But so I'm asking, with all humility, can a single prop Cessna of that caliber or whatever plane that was, a little Piper or a little Indian, can that make it to England from New Jersey? I'm looking at that plane. I'm like, dude, there's no way that can make it to fucking England. That thing is suitable. I mean, how far is England? I got to look at a fucking map, but I know it's 6 hours time difference. So that's got to be like from here to California. Cause that's 3 hours. Wait, England might be 3 hours. Fuck. Now I'm gonna have to look that up. Yeah. Either way, I'm going to question that plane could get to California or any further than that. You're going to have to stop for fuel. Where are you going to stop for fuel in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean? I mean, maybe you go to Greenland first? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
This is exactly what I was talking about earlier. It's a film that is best not scrutinized. You know, if you enjoy it, don't ask these questions. Just be cool with it, because the more you start asking these questions, Ryan, the more you're going to see stuff doesn't hold up, and it's going to affect your view of the film. Just don't poke the dead frog, as the comedians like to say. If you enjoyed it, just move right along.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Okay, so it's 3,400 miles from New York to England. Now I'm going to look up the distance of a single rough Cessna and see if I'm going to fact check this shit. Carry on with the discussion. I'm listening.
Well, yeah, so, he gets her on the plane, Pops flies her away, Dodge did his good deed, and, he's going to go back home, and we get to another time jump. It's a week later all of a sudden. Well,
Yeah.
Go figure. We certainly have a lot of different techniques and elements just kind of being, thrown up against the wall seemingly at random here, so why the hell not? Dodge goes back home, gets your favorite character, Miss Elsa, who's still cleaning, and he kind of blows up at her a little bit, like, what the hell? Why are you still here? Go be with your family. The damn world's about to end. Like, what are you doing cleaning my goddamn apartment? And then, again, she's just like, what the hell? Firing me. And, of course, he's like, no, we'll see you next week. So, again, it's just a woman that either refuses or can't accept the reality of what's going on for whatever reason. And so, shortly thereafter, it's nighttime. It's going to be about the end of the world here, and he decides to listen to one of those records that Penny had left behind. Power goes out. He goes to investigate. Lo and behold, there she is. Turns out she made Pops turn around, not take her to her family. Not that he would have been able to anyways. Funny thing, actually, she probably really wanted to go, but she was like, hey, this plane is too small. We're going to die. And he was like, oh, right. Let's go back.
Yeah, he probably sobered up. I think they were having some cocktails. She passed out. He talked Dad into going to England. He's like, fuck it. Yeah, let's go, bro.
Sounds good. It's like the way that you pitch going to Vegas with your friend after
Yeah.
you've been drinking. Yeah, bro. Let's go
Fuck
right
it.
now,
Yeah, let's
dude.
go.
Let's just go right now.
Yeah. And you get halfway to fucking Barstow and you're like, oh,
Sober
shit.
up and it's like, oh
This is
my
a terrible
God.
idea.
I have work tomorrow, dude. Holy shit. We need to get back home. My wife's going to be pissed.
She doesn't. I don't even tell my wife. Did you pack clothes? No. No. What are we going to do? Dude, let's just go home. Okay. I think that's definitely the discussion that was being made in that place. Because I just looked it up. It looks like they can go no more than 800 miles, give or take.
Oh, wow.
So, without
All right.
refueling.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Another inconsistency. But yeah, so
Consistency in this cutting edge documentary film.
Yeah, so, he finds Penny there and they embrace, and she's totally not upset at all for whatever reason. Be that he just threw her on a plane while she was sleeping and got rid of her. To be honest, that's what it felt like to me. Like, I understand that when you take a step back, it's supposed to be that, like, oh, he did it for her to send her off. But, like, that shit almost felt cold, dude. He was just like, yeah, hey, Pops, she's sleeping. Why don't you throw her in a plane, drive her off? You know what it felt like? It felt like, honey, the dog's sleeping. It's time. Put him in the car. Take him to the forest. Open the door. And send him away. That's what it felt like. He was putting her in the plane to like send her off, and she's gonna like wake up in a forest and then just howl at the moon in sadness.
Yeah, it in many ways it was kind of a I know what's best for you moment, better than you do, or you wouldn't do the right thing if you were given the chance, so I'm gonna make the decision for you, which is kind of chauvinistic a little bit,
right?
Little bit.
No, you don't know what you want, honey. I know what you want. You want to get on the plane and get out of here.
Yeah.
Go on, sweetheart.
Yep. Yeah. If this movie wasn't written and directed by a woman, I would maybe take a little issue with that scene, but
So yeah, but and then it does end on a very sort of tender scene where they embrace and everything's cool, and they get into bed, and she's talking about how she's scared, and he's sort of lovingly caressing her face and talking about how much her relationship means to him and everything about that. I also have a clip of that one as well. Gonna go out on a little tender clip here, listeners. So let's hear what they have to say.
Hey, what is it?
How could you let me go?
I don't know. It's so stupid.
I woke up. I made him turn around. I don't want to fall asleep, okay? Don't let me fall asleep, promise.
I promise. What about your parents?
They're romantics, they understand. Besides, they've got each other. I just want to be with you.
I want to be with you.
I couldn't live without you. No matter how long. What do we do now?
I just want to lie here with you. I just want to talk to you.
What are we going to talk about?
Where'd you grow up?
Well, I was born in Surrey. My whole family are from there. My mum was a journalist before she married my dad. They never fought. Or at least we never heard them fight. Charlie's the oldest, then Benny, then me. We had a sister, but she died when she was born. I still think about her. Oh, God.
What was her name? What was your sister's name?
Patricia. Patricia Hope Lockhart.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful name.
I wish I'd met you a long time ago. When we were kids.
Couldn't have happened any other way. It had to happen now.
But it isn't enough time.
Never would have been.
I'm scared.
I am madly in love with you, Penny. You're my favorite thing.
I thought that somehow we'd save each other.
We did. Penny. I'm really glad I got to know you.
And so yeah, from there we fade to white, the world is over, and so is the movie.
Yeah.
And I suppose so is about this episode.
There's no happy endings. And maybe that's why I like the movie from an emo standpoint. Also, pretty cool that our last clip of the year was literally the world ending. So you're welcome, everybody. Happy New Year. Happy holidays to everybody listening. I thought it was hilarious in this, right before this scene took place, Steve Carell turns on the news and watches the last news broadcast where they talk about the end of the world coming and how many hours are left. And, oh, by the way, it's daylight savings time this week, so they're going to lose an hour. After all of that, the writer takes an hour away from humanity at the last minute due to daylight savings time, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, that's a nice little touch.
And the cleaning woman shows up at the end, Elsa, and she also refused once again to be fired and go home and said, I'll see you next Thursday. So, yeah, wonder how her life turned out, what her day was like at the end of the world.
So once again, to reiterate, Ryan, I know I spent the bulk of this episode sort of team anti-seeking a friend for the end of the world, rather. But I didn't hate it. It was fine. I enjoyed it reasonably. Like, there's nothing offensive about this movie, you know? It's like the equivalent of like Coast FM or, you know, grocery store music. Like, you don't hate it, but you're not going to turn it on of your own volition. And that's kind of how I felt about this movie. But why don't you go ahead and help us wrap this episode up with your 3 adjectives?
I'm like kind of embarrassed to even say now. This was my first word is sentimental. This one kind of hit me a little hard. Like, this one hit a little different in 2020 than when I first saw it in 2012. You watch this in 2012, you know, everything's all hunky-dory, and we're coming out of the recession. Oh, the economy's going great. My career was just taking off at that point, and things were going pretty smooth. And it's like, oh yeah, you know, asteroid, huh? You know, but now that we've actually lived through some shit, we've seen some things. This movie hit a little different. And, you know, hey, look, I'm single. I have no children. And so I could see myself going on a bit of a Dodge journey if things get much worse. So if you're listening to this and the podcast suddenly ends, you know, ask yourself, hey, maybe things got worse and Ryan just gave up and took a ride. Consistent is my second word. I thought, for better or worse, the tone of the film was consistent. I thought that, to me at least, the through line to the film, the characters and the humor, the beats, all the things in the film were, you know, pretty spot on all the way through. There was no like big left turns, no big twists. It was just a movie, and it was a consistent film that took us places with characters. And then my last word is cathartic. I left this movie feeling like, you know, hey, look, things are going to be okay. You know, when they're laying in bed and the screen goes white and they're just talking to each other until the very last moment of humanity's existence. I found some odd peace in that, that as long as you're spending your time with the right people, the right person, you know, it's going to be okay. If it all comes to an end tomorrow, it'll be all right. And I think songs have been written about that. You know, it's just kind of, I left them. It was kind of a cathartic feeling for me, just a feeling of everything's going to be okay. I will say this, and then I'll pass to you. I'll leave you with a question. Love is a bit of a quandary. And when this movie ended, it left me with one question. If the asteroid dodged Earth and avoided this whole scenario, and humanity continued to exist, do you think Steve Carell and Keira Knightley's characters, Dodge and Penny, have a shot? Is love a worthy endeavor in the eyes of the filmmaker, in so much as everybody else that had been in love in this movie, when push came to shove and the bitter end came, everybody bailed on love? And the only reason Steve Carell and Keira Knightley work in this film as a couple is because the world is ending and they know that they only have to make it work for moments, or days or weeks or whatever. But in that scenario, anyone could find love. So their love is meaningless, right? Like, that was kind of my takeaway from the film. Like, if they were to press on, they would have been no different than Rob Corddry and his wife, or any other couple in the entire film. The only people that were finding success in the apocalypse were single, like the friends of hers that were in the basement down there in the bunker that they had built with titanium. Jason, thoughts?
That's interesting. No, I think that really sort of the overall point, if you will, is that nothing is finite, or rather everything is finite and nothing is infinite. And so because of that, it's really just life is a series of moments, and it's a series of exchanges, and it's a series of making connections with different people for indeterminate amount of times, you know? And
it's a live in the moment scenario.
Yeah, I think it's kind of just appreciate people while you have them, which is a sentiment I really do enjoy. And what you said was very nice, and what we're talking about right now are very nice sentiments. Like, it did have a very nice sentiment at the end. I'm not gonna decry that by any means. And yeah, I do think there's a lot of truth to that. You know, I don't know how a lot of people's lives have gone with regards to their various relationships with people, not just romantic relationships, but, you know, friends, family, whatever. But I know that a large part of my experience has been that, you know, people come and go. There's very few people that have just been, you know, mainstays of like my entire life. You know, early on, it's just all about, you know, you with your parents because you're being raised. You know, then you move on. Some people stay in touch. Some people don't. Then you start to, you know, get together with your high school friends and your college buddies and your frat buddies and all these people. You know, you move out after you graduate. You've got some roommates, and those are your people. And then you meet somebody, and then before you know it, you're starting a family. All those people kind of fall off. Maybe one or two people stick around, and now you're starting this new life with this, you know, woman or man, whoever it is. And I think that's sort of the underlying point, rather, is that our experiences with people and developing those relationships, they can be lifetime relationships or they can be blips on a radar, but that doesn't necessarily take away from the value of that experience.
So, just to summarize that, you love this movie.
I thought it was a flawed film that made some very nice statements at the end.
Right.
I mean, I can give it that, right?
No.
You can be nice and not necessarily talented or smart or gifted, but still, you know, be a talent, you know, have warmth in your heart and things of that nature, right?
This podcast is living proof of that, my friend. What are your 3 words?
So I wanted to make sure that I tried to kind of balance it a little bit, you know, make sure that I wasn't too one side or the other. So the first one is that it's a whimsical film. And I feel like I love whimsy personally. You know, it's kind of got a little bit of a, you know, it's like the anti The Road, right? I don't know if you've seen that, the one with Viggo Mortensen, The Road, about the end of the world.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, I love that movie too, but that's some heavy ass shit, right? Yeah. And this was most definitely not. This was a very whimsical take on the end of the world. Everything's kept light, fun, happy. And as you say, right now, it's a great time to have that. So I did appreciate that it had that, in spite of all the flaws that I had. Like, I did like that it didn't resist the idea of showing up with a smile on its face and being like, "Hey, buddy, let's just put our arms around each other and go for a nice walk down the street, even in the end of the world. It'd be nice." So I get that. I felt it was a disconnected film. Quite the opposite of you, who felt it was sort of focused. I felt it jumped around a lot, whether it's the time jumps, whether it's the nature of the ticking clock device. The movie, just to me, it was not disciplined in how it progressed through telling its story. And finally, I felt it was tropey. And I'm sorry about that, but it just seemed to sort of check off all the boxes of the traditional romantic comedy after they got on the road, which, you know, is at least half the film, if not a little bit more. So loved the opening. You know, it's kind of one of those movies where for the first 20 minutes, like, I was really excited. You know, I was having a great time. And as it progressed, it started moving more away from the elements that I was there for. and leaned into the elements that I wasn't quite there for. And so that kind of, shifted it the other direction a little bit. So let's go ahead, Ryan. Let's slap a star and grade rating on it. I'll kick us off this time and let you know that I give it a solid 3 stars out of 5. Right there in the middle. Didn't love it, but didn't hate it. Not a great film, I would say, but by no means a bad film. Totally solid. I'll go ahead and say, as anybody listening's probably picked up on by now, but if you like romantic comedies and if you're a fan of lighter fare and you're not somebody that looks super closely at a lot of the writing decisions and story elements and things of that nature, you're gonna enjoy this film. And Ryan enjoyed this film too, and he does those things. So I'm not gonna say it's specifically relegated to casual viewers. Ryan's very knowledgeable about film and he loved it. So, but I do think that if you don't break it down too much, you will enjoy it more. So 3 stars out of 5. Ryan, you do the grade ratings. What do you have?
I'm going to start by agreeing with you. For starters, I do. This is not this is not a movie to be dissected or looked at up close. This is a movie to be observed in total. As for what it is, kind of like Cher. Like, just don't get too close, and she still holds up, and everything's okay. This is the Cher of movies. I'm going to give it an 89% B+. I can't put it in the.
Nice.
I can't. As much as I love the movie, just in the fun that I had watching it and the jokes and just going along for the ride, I'm not going to say this was a good movie, or a great movie, I should say, wherein I would put it in categories of these A-list films. I think it would do a disservice to my A rating in the future as we move forward into future episodes. When I give a movie an A, people are gonna be like, "Yeah, but this dipshit gave Seeking a Friend an A. So what are his A's worth?" So I can't devalue the A. The A stands B+. But again, just because it's a fun romp, and I can't stress this enough. It's been a rough year for all of us. Did we not need a little fun romp to wrap this up? Jason and I had a little discussion over what movie we were going to end the year with. And, do we go dystopian? Do we go, kind of a little more lighthearted and jolly? Do we just go slapstick comedy and shove all in? We got some of each on the list. I'm looking forward to getting to all the above, but we decided to leave you with something a little lighthearted. If you watch the movies with us before you listen to our podcast, I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you so much, all of you, for listening and putting up with our bullshit. We've got a lot of great movies on the list coming up at you. Jason, thank you so much for having me this year. Appreciate you, buddy. I hope...
yeah, man.
I can only say I hope I get to be one of those constants in your life and not one of the come-and-go people.
You and me both, buddy. I love doing this program with you. I love talking film with you. I love having something that we can sort of do together. And yeah, man, we're going to be doing this show for a long time to everybody who's listening. So don't expect us to be going anywhere anytime soon.
Till the end of the world. We're doing this show till the end of the world. It's going to be Jason and I in a bed. I'm going to brush his hair out of his face. His hair's getting really long. We're going to listen to some Walker Brothers on some vinyl because it sounds warmer. Jason, I'm going to be your, what you call it? Your glitter, glam, glitzy mermaid girl, whatever the fuck.
Manic Pixie Dream Girl.
That's the one, and I'm gonna be that for you, buddy, till the bitter end on this goddamn podcast. Thank you for having me.
I love it, man. I love it. To everybody who's listening, man, we hope that you have a great 2021. Like Ryan said, it's been rough on us, but hopefully hanging out with us, watching movies, talking about them, listening to two jackasses, just kind of joke around a little bit, bring some levity to your life, give you something that you can focus on. And, let's keep this going, man. I mean, if we're going to get through whatever may come down the road, we have to really embrace art and entertainment and really, whatever happens around us economically and otherwise, we can always make art on our own. Maybe not some giant ass Marvel movie, but we can make small independent films. We can write movies. We can write books. We can get this stuff. There's so many options for us to make and produce material and share it with the other. And maybe this is a time where we stop having to look at the studio system and we stop having to look at what's popular and what's a bestseller, and we start thinking locally and we start reaching out to a lot of indie artists. And I mean, like Ryan, I would love to be able to, have an episode or several episodes where, we're reached out to by people out there in the indie filmmaking community. And it's like, hey, look at my film, put it on your list or do an episode on it. And, whether you love it or hate it, there's nothing like that. Like, we've really got to embrace the local community, because what we see is, what happened this whole year is how quickly these giant institutions can come crumbling down.
Yep.
And it may, the movie industry, I mean, right now it feels like it'll never come back. I'm sure it just feels that way. I'm sure it will. But even if it does, it's going to be at least 3, 5, 7, 10 years, and it's probably going to look a whole lot different. And, but we as artists and we as individuals can continue to create content. And if we accept that not everything has to be some giant studio production, and we can start thinking about how can we interact with other artists and other people in the film and cinematic and artistic community on a local level, I think that's the one thing we need to come away with this year, is the importance of art and helping us through these really turbulent times where everything else can disappear, money, infrastructure, business, but we can continue making art in spite of all of it.
Yeah, I agree with all those things.
Yeah, so with that being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and leave you. Hope you have an excellent 21. Don't forget, we do want to hear from you. We love hearing from you guys, and you can hit us up a couple of different ways. Firstly, Ryan, we don't talk about it. We have a hell of an Instagram. We have a very cool Instagram account, so just search Esoterica Cinema on Instagram. Find us, and we've got a lot of cool pictures and quotes that we post there. As always, you can hit us up on Twitter at Esoterica Cinema. Take advantage of those 280 characters, go back and forth. And you can also send us a nice long email, esotericacinema@gmail.com. I know somebody out there is having one delicious muffin and they're going to need someone to talk to about it. So to you out there, go ahead and email me. Let us know how it is. Guys, can't thank you enough for hanging around with us. We do this for each other. We do this for you. We do this for the films. And we hope that you stick around with us for a long time. Ryan, thanks again for hanging around with me, man. Like, we're going to do this for a long time, and I'm loving every second of it.
See you next year, buddy.
And hey, just to remember everybody before we go, we will still be back in 2 weeks in 2021. And we are going to have a full-length episode for you with comparisons and a comedy sketch and the 2 films and everything. It's going to be great to remind you of those 2 films, The Diving Bell and The Butterfly, as well as Dr. Sleep Director's Cut. Have a great rest of the year, and we will see you next year on Esoterica Cinema.
Your number 1 for classic radio listening.
Love songs on the coast. Coast 103.5.
Coast 103.5. This is your friend Laid Back Larry, and those were a couple End of the World love songs for you. First up was Thong Song by Cisco, and followed by that, of course, we had Wet Ass Pussy by Cardi B. Listeners, I think it's interesting and worth addressing that ever since the End of the World was formally announced, I've noticed the concept of love has in fact demonstrated itself to amount to little more than raw, carnal displays of graphic sexuality, each more extreme and shocking than the next. And we just want to let you know that here at Coast, we're going to be right by your side as you continue to push the envelope in new and unsettling ways. A quick reminder before we continue that the End of the World is brought to you by Rock Monster Energy Drink. Rock Monster. One day meth will be legal, but until then, there's Rock Monster. Listeners, I did just receive a call on the coastline from Ron and Tarzana. Amanda, if you're listening, Ron wants you to know that while he engaged in arguably perverted sexual acts with no less than 18 women at the Rockford orgy yesterday, you by far gave the best, most aggressive head, and he appreciates you. It's 1:37 a.m. here on the coast, We'll be right back after these quick words from our sponsors.
What does the future hold for the ultimate thrill seekers? How will they evolve? Their heads will become more streamlined to handle the tremendous velocity from the most frightening roller coaster on Earth, Viper.
Laid Back Larry here with you again at Coast 103.5. Just received a bit of bad news. Apparently science has failed us, and the projections were wrong. It's now projected that Earth will come to a demise immediately. Listeners, I did want to take these final moments on Earth to announce that I formally reject all organized religion from here on out. God is dead, and I hereby pledge allegiance to the deity known only as Baphomet in all his unholy glory. Also want to give one more quick shout out to our sponsor, Rock Monster Energy Drink. Rock Monster, 'cause fuck your heart and everything else. This is Laid Back Larry saying so long and hail Satan on behalf of Coast 103.5 FM.
From the incomparable mind of Ashton Macaulay comes a novel people are hailing as an instant classic, Whiteout, a Nick Ventnor adventure. Nick Ventnor has two defining characteristics. He is both a profound drunk and a damn good monster hunter. In Whiteout, Nick's skills are put to the test as he is tasked with searching the mountains of the Himalayas for the lost gates of Shangri-La. Unfortunately for Nick, his arch-nemesis Manchester also has his sights set on the gates and the hefty reward that goes with it. The two are pitted in a race to the top of the mountains, a race made all the more troublesome by a Yeti that has been terrorizing the lands. Featuring death-defying action and a hilarious wit, Whiteout by Ashton Macaulay is the next great adventure in American fiction. Find Whiteout today in ebook, hardcover and paperback versions, online and everywhere books are sold. Published by Aberrant Literature.